And while that's drying, let's go do, let's do his hat. So for his hat is also scattered straw to start with. So we're going to grab a little bit of that, and I'm going to color his whole hat with the scattered straw. So I'm just going to start over here and brush some on. And just give his whole hat a yellow undertone. Okay, but we have to let that dry. So while that's drying, I'm going to go up and I'm going to add a little bit of color to some of these little leaves up here. So for that, I use peeled paint. And I do this all the time when I'm painting. I skip around. I'll maybe lay down the base coat for the tree, and then I'll go over and work on the boy's skin or his fishing pole, anything that's not touching something I just painted, so that while that's drying, I could be working on another section. I'm just going in and adding some peeled paint to my leaves. I'm kind of letting the ink run out on my brush, so some of the leaves are lighter than the other ones. When you first dip your brush in the ink and use it the first time, that leaf's going to be really dark. But as you move along, your ink is coming off of your brush, and when you get to this very last leaf, there's just a little bit of ink on there. But you let it dry in between. So while that's drying, let's go down and add some, well, let's do, his hat's dried all the way, so let's go ahead and get the rest of his hat, and I need some brown for that, so let me switch palettes. Okay, so I need a little bit of frayed burlap for his hat. Grab a little bit of that, and I want his hat to have a kind of a little shiny spot right here in the middle of his hat, but I'm going to add some brown, and I want it to be darkest down here at the bottom. So I'm going to add my frayed burlap right there at the bottom, and then I'm just going to come up here because my brush is running out of ink, and add a little bit up here at the top, and then dab my excess off, and use my water to lightly feather that in. Okay, I'm going to grab a little bit more, and I want it to be darkest right in here, so right here, and then wipe my excess off of my brush and just use water to flick it up until I've colored in the rest of my hat. I think I'll get a little bit right here on his hat, just a little bit, with just what's left on my brush. Let's see how it looks like the top of his hat right here in the front's a little bit more shiny, but I added a little bit of brown in there so it looks a little dirty. He's a boy, I'm pretty sure he gets his stuff dirty. Alright, so while that's drying, let's go do his overalls. So for his jeans, I used, faded jeans. So let me grab that. And I'm going to grab just a little bit on my brush. And again, remember to lay it down where you want it to be darkest. So I want his jeans to be darkest down at the bottom of where he's sitting on the tree. So I'm going to put a little bit of my faded jeans right along the edge of his pants, like that. And then I'm going to use dip my brush off and then use the water and just the brush to flick it up onto the rest of his pants. And I'm going to go all the way down the line so that it doesn't dry, and then come back up here at the top again and come back down so my edge of my ink doesn't have a chance to dry. So that added a little bit on there. So let's get a little bit more on my brush here. And we want to do his little, he's got little suspenders up here, so let's get a little bit on there. And I want it to be a little bit dark here where his arm is touching. And then I'm just going to use my brush, wipe my brush off, and then use that ink I laid down to move over to this side of his body. And if you collect too much ink on your brush, remember to wipe it off, and then come back and add, pull more of your ink over with just water. He's got another strap right here, so I'm going to get that one. Like that. And then, while that's been drying, his pants at the bottom have dried, so I'm going to go ahead and add some more color to the bottom of his jeans. Give him a little bit more blue on here. Try not to color his arm. And then he's got a little bit of jeans showing right over here on this side that I missed. So let's go add a coat onto there. And I have quite a bit of ink on my brush, so remember, if you have too much, wipe it off. And then just use your water to bring that blue over to the edge of his pants. Let's add a little bit to the cuff here. I think I'll darken it up just a little bit up here still. This is going to be darkened back here behind his arm. Not so much over here where his pants would be coming out from underneath this book and maybe the sunshine's hitting it just a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to let that dry, but I'm going to go up here and I want to add another layer to his hat. So I'm going to go back to my frayed burlap, grab that. I just want to darken it up just a little bit more. So grab a little bit of my frayed burlap, and I want it to be darkest down here at the bottom of his hat. So I'm going to add a little bit more down here. Give it a little bit more of a shadow. There, I think that looks pretty good. I guess we could do his fishing pole too, as long as because it's not touching anything. So for his fishing pole, well, let's color the fishing pole vintage photo. So I'm going to grab just a little bit of that very little tiny dab on the end of my little brush. And it's a pretty small fishing pole, so I'm just going to start down here at the bottom, and I'm just going to use the ink I have on my brush to pull all the way to the end. Otherwise, you're going to be painting the sky because it's pretty small. Okay, and we've also got our little our bird. Let's go ahead and paint him too because his hat's dry now. So let's paint the bird faded jeans. I'm going to grab a little bit on my end of my brush, and I'm just going to put it so it's dark down here towards the bottom of his body. So see how it's dark? I've laid my ink down here at the bottom. And then I'm just going to wipe my brush off and then just use water to bring that up onto the rest of his body. Just a little bit. So he's a little bit blue. So you let that dry and then you can come back and add another layer. But while that's drying, let's go down and do the book. So for his book, I used old paper for the pages. So let me grab that. So grab a little bit of the old paper onto your brush, and I just use that to color the pages. So I'm just going to run a little bit right here along his page, and he's got a little bit of page showing over here on this side. Just give him a little bit of color. And then it looks like I colored the cover Wild Honey. So let's get that out. And grab a little bit of Wild Honey. And I want the book to be darkest next to where his hand is at. So I'm just going to put my Wild Honey right underneath of his hand. And then I'm going to wipe my brush off. And then I'm going to use that color I laid down to spread out onto his book. I want to get the binding too, so I'm going to put a little bit up here and just use that to cover up the rest of the binding. And then you let that dry and you can come back and you can add another layer if you want. So let's add another layer to our bird because he's dried a little bit. So I'm going to grab just a little bit more of my faded jeans. And again, I'm going to lay down my color down at the bottom of his body first. Wipe my brush off. And then just use my water in my brush to pull it up towards the top of his body. Gives him just a little bit more color. So while I'm still waiting for my book to dry, I'm going to go down here and add a little bit of color to my apple. And so for that, I use Shabby Shutters. So I'm going to grab a little bit of Shabby Shutters, and I want my apple to be darkest down here towards the bottom. So I'm going to lay my color down right along the edge like that. And then I'm going to wipe my excess ink off, and I'm going to use just my water in my brush to pull the ink I laid down up towards the top. Like that. And I see she's also got a couple of leaves right here, so let's paint those while we're waiting for things to dry. So I'm going to grab me some peeled paint, and I'm just going to go in and add a little bit down here towards the base of the leaf, and then I'm going to wipe my excess ink off my brush and just use water to pull that up towards the ends of the leaves. And that helped cover up some of that brown I got on the leaf too. Okay, so his book looks like it's dried a little bit. So let's go up here and add a little bit more of our Wild Honey because I want it to be darker. You could leave it if you like it how it is. It depends on how much ink you had on your brush the first time. But I'm going to add a little bit more. And again, I started out underneath of his hand. So all my ink pools there first, and then just use my brush to pull it out towards the edge. Add a little bit more to the binding here. I think that looks pretty good. I like that. Okay, for his shirt, he is going to have barn door for his shirt. So I'm going to grab a little bit of barn door on there on my brush, and barn door's red. That's why I left it for last, because no matter what, I always tend to get the red on something else, and it just makes a mess. So I make sure everything's dry, and then I do the red last usually. So I want him to be darkest towards the tree. So I'm going to lay down my first coat of barn door down the back of his clothes, like that. And then I'm going to wipe my brush off. And I'm going to use just the water to pull that out as far as I can get it to go. While trying not to get it on anything else, like his face. Okay, so that looks pretty good for the first coat. I'm kind of liking that. So let's also go down here and do this patch on his knee while we are using this color. So again, I'm going to use my barn door, and I tried to not color the dots red because I'm going to color those yellow. So I just want to get right in between the little dots. And color the inside of the patch red. But if you get the red on the dot, that's okay, because I did the first time too. So one of my dots is red with yellow, and you just try to make do. And after your shirt is dried, you're going to go back, if you'd like, and add another layer. So I want to darken mine up just a little bit more. So I'm going to come back, maybe add a little bit more right here along his collar. And along the back of his shirt. Darken up that whole section there behind his arm, because it's going to cast a shadow on there. Okay, I like that. That leaves a little bit of shadow right here in the front of his shirt, so it looks like the sun's maybe shining on it just a little bit. So let's go down now. What's left? Oh, grass. So let's go down and do grass. And so for the grass, I started out with crushed olive. So I'm just going to lay down my little bit of a base coat of my crushed olive all along the grass. So I'm going to start over here under his foot and just do a quick swipe along the grass here. Gives a little bit of a base coat to work with. I'll grab a little bit more. Get over here behind the tree. Maybe add a little bit more underneath the puppy here. Okay, I'm going to let that dry for just a second. Oh, well, while that's drying, I could color this little mushroom over here that I missed. And that, I used barn door on that. Just grab a little bit and color the mushroom. Even though in the card I covered up the mushroom with the placement of my fence. But just in case I happen to have it peeking through, I'm going to color it anyway. And then let's do the flowers while this is drying. The flowers. So let's do the flowers with, oh, how about squeezed lemonade? That's a new, fun, bright yellow color. But if you don't have the squeezed lemonade, you could use mustard seed. So I'm going to go ahead and do my flowers with the squeezed lemonade. Make them this fun, bright yellow. And I had quite a bit of ink on my brush. So I've done all the flowers with that little dab I had on my brush. And I'm going to do these little dots on his pants. But you want to make sure the red's dry before you do the dots on the pants, otherwise you're going to pick up a little bit of that red. Alright, so I want to go down here and add some more texture to my grass. So for that, I'm going to grab some peeled paint, and I want to actually add some blades of grass into my section. So I'm going to take and get a little dab of peeled paint on the end of my brush, and then I'm just going to take my brush down and I'm just going to kind of do like a little check mark and just flick some little blades of grass up from down here at the bottom. Okay, and then I've did like 3 little sections there. And then I'm going to grab me some more, a little dab on the end of my brush. And I'm going to add some over here, right over here. So I've got my little bitty dab on the end. And again, I'm going to do a little check mark. Let's see how the ink's kind of running out. So again, I'll wipe my brush off and grab a little bit more, and you're going to do that wherever you'd like to add some little grass strokes. I just think it makes it look like there's actually grass there, so I'd like to put a few little flicks in, just a little bit. And even over here where there's grass already for me, I'm still going to go ahead and add a little bit of my streaks in there. I think it just adds a little bit of fun extra on there. And I only do it a couple of times before I wipe my brush off and then grab a little bit more ink, because otherwise the ink gets too diluted with the water running out of your brush, and then there's hardly any that you swipe down on there. And let's go do maybe just a little bit right here in front of this puppy. And I think I'll darken up my apple a little bit too by adding a little bit more shabby shutters on there. And I'm just going to darken it up down here at the bottom, and then wipe my brush off and pull a little bit up here maybe towards the top. It wasn't very dark. Okay, so that's our grass. That looks pretty good. So that is our boy this month. He's Snoozin. With our distress markers and our re-inkers, but I also went in and added some color to his hair with just the markers. So again, for his hair I used the vintage photo, and then I had some rusty hinge. So I'm going to go start with my vintage photo, and I just want to add a few streaks in there. So I'm going to use the fine tip end of my pen, and I'm just going to take my brush and do like a little flick motion. And just add a few little strands, looks like hair, and then you want to go with the direction of the hair too. So I'm going to go ahead and add a few up here at the top. But you want to kind of go with whatever direction the hair is going. You wouldn't want to, you know, make it go like sideways, because his hair's not growing that way. But down here at the bottom it looks like it kind of curls a little bit. So I'm just going to flick a few little flicks in there. Like that. And then I'm going to add some, what's this color? Oh, Rusty Hinge. Let's add some Rusty Hinge too, because I forgot we used that on there a little bit. And I'm going to just add a little bit of that color in there. And I'm not going to worry that I maybe go over some of the lines I already put down. I'm just going to add some color right in there. Like that. But it makes it look like he's got some hair streaks. I really love these markers for that. And then I'm also going to do a little bit on his hat. So I've got my frayed burlap pin. And I just want to add some streaks onto his hat right here. So it makes it look like a little bit darker. And again, you don't have to. I just happen to have the markers, so I'm going to add a little bit more definition on there with just my marker. I think it just gives it that little bit of extra something that the watercoloring by itself can't do. And then I'm going to take peeled paint and I'm going to do these little leaves. I'm just going to go down each of these little center stems. and make them just a little bit darker. Like that. You can also, if you didn't want to do the flicking with your grass, you could go ahead and just do that with the pen. Just add a few little brush strokes in there. I think that gives it just a little bit of something extra on it. Okay, well that looks pretty good for the watercolor painting part. I also did, some clouds. So for the clouds, I'm going to get my non-stick craft mat and my cloud template. And I've got some tumbled glass distress ink. So I've got my tumbled glass distress ink and my cloud template. And the cloud template, you can, it's on the sidebar of the blog. You can download it off the blog and print it out. And I just use it over and over. As you can see, mine's really blue. And I start out by having my cloud template, and I decide I just do mine from the bottom up. That's just because I like to do it that way. You don't have to. You can do it from the top down. To me, I can get less ink doing it this way, and it just seems to work out best for me. But I've got my little sponge dauber, and I'm just going to dab that into my ink pad, pick some up, and I always start with my sponge dauber on the cloud template. So I'm going to push down on the cloud template and just brush it off of the cloud. So see, it's left a little mark right there. So it's left the little cloud right here. Okay, and then I'm going to move my cloud template. So maybe I'll move it over like this so the cloud is in a different section. And I had quite a bit of ink, so I'm not going to kick up more ink, but I'm just going to brush right over the top of my cloud template again. And try not to get it on the boy's face like I just did. And then you move your cloud template. So maybe when you're doing the cloud, make sure to cover up his face, because I colored his face blue right there. Not good. But move it around until you get it however many clouds you want on there. And you can re-ink your sponge dauber if you need to get more ink on there. It just depends on how much you pick up the first time. But like that, and you've got some clouds. Let's see if I can zoom in a little bit so you can see. But see how you can just see the clouds just a little bit in the background? Just kind of gives them a little bit of something extra there. And it's really easy, so you don't have to do all the painting and all that. You just use your little cute cloud template. But that's our card this month. So if you'd like to color along with me, head over to the store and pick up a kit. It's www.HeathersHobbieHaven.com. And I'll see you next time. Have a great day.